Right, 7 reasons Burns don't mess about today, please.
Well, let's crack on, shall we? Let's face it, the shooting in Uncharted is immensely dull. Drake aims and fires his gun so slowly that I wouldn't be surprised when he's not killing the fuck out of people for greed if he wasn't the man responsible for setting up the shots in Wes Anderson movies. Worse, there's no excitement, no drama, no tension, no real reason for these many gunfights, above and beyond people liking guns. Walking Second Amendment Nathan Drake just arrives on scene and deals out inadvertent slow-motion death before stepping in front of the camera and handing out charismatic rebuttals and justifications for doing so, if at all. I bet he's a Republican, Nathan Drake. His MO is almost exactly the same. He goes to sovereign nations, kills people, and steals all their stuff. In fact, historically, you know who Nathan Drake is closest to, right? It's not Indiana Jones, it's Pablo bloody Escobar. They both kill thousands of people, the difference being that Escobar had the good grace to build some schools. Man, that guy's voting Trump and you know it. 6. Movement. Speaking of Drake, have you ever wondered if he's actually got a severe medical condition that affects his movement? I mean, look at him. He can barely walk 5 feet without pirouetting, dancing his way around everything. He looks like a fucking background extra in a Bruno Mars video. Just turning him from left to right makes him look like he's auditioning for Britain's Got Talent. All he needs is a head whip and snap fingers and he'd get 3 yeses and a standing ovation from peasants. Granted, back when Uncharted first came out, we were all impressed by Nathan Drake's animation and how he would put his arm up against a wall when he came into contact with it without the player doing anything. But going back and playing those games, he seems less Indiana Jones and more Hunter S. Thompson. His arms flailing, head wobbling, Drake, summer in Yemen, on the edge of the desert when the drugs began to take hold. 5. Climbing. Listen, criticising the Nathan Drake collection for having loads of climbing is like criticising old people for their questionable views. It may seem abhorrent now, but it was just a done thing back then. Last gen, video games featured more stilted climbing than the average season of Gladiators, Assassin's Creed, The Saboteur, Infamous, Darksiders. The last gen had more climbing than a fucking BAFTA after party. Uncharted does climbing better than most, to be fair, even if sometimes Thunderbird Nate flings himself off into a ravine or something. I've got no problem at all with Nate climbing all over natural structures which happen to be in his way. That is kind of the point after all. What gets me is when he doesn't need to climb but does it anyway, like in the chapter Urban Warfare in Uncharted 2, where he climbs over a bombed out house in a street. Why doesn't he just walk around it? Or use the door? And then you see Nathan Drake as a teenager near the beginning of Uncharted 3, climbing all over a museum and other Colombian rooftops. Who taught him to climb like that? He says he was raised by nuns. Spider nuns? I know Stan Lee's come up with a load of old rubbish in his time. Number 4, Sully. Right, I actually like Sully. Sure, his character is little more than a cipher for old white men getting what they want and screwing over the younger generation. But he's alright. What I can't understand is why he hangs around with a child, or indeed why a child hangs around with him. That flashback sequence in Uncharted 3 is like a weird Last of Us prequel, with Sully and Nate on the rob in a Colombian supermarket. In fact, Naughty Dog should make that because I guarantee that's a better idea than any of the piss they've got in mind for the actual Last of Us follow-up. Number 3, get fucked. You know who you are. Number 2, stealth sections. Look, when stealth sections are done correctly, they can be tense, they can be enjoyable, they can really add something to a game. The problem is that correctly done stealth sections roll around at the same frequency of commenters on the internet being right or me being wrong. It simply doesn't happen. Take the opening of Uncharted 2, for instance. Now you're probably thinking, the train, it was amazing, and the snow, and the footprints and stuff, fantastic! Well, that's okay. The problem is that after all that fairly cool stuff, there's a wank-ass stealth section where you have to follow bloody Gary Kemp through a basement before engaging in some insta-fail stealth. No one remembers that, do they? No, they've expunged it from their brains, and rightly so. Number 1, fans. Without wanting to poke the bear too much on this one, the main problem with Uncharted is, of course, its fans. Like followers of well-known has-beens Liverpool Football Club, they're a rabid bunch who can't admit that what was good before isn't necessarily good now. Many a critic has suffered the arm-flailing, delusional whinging of Uncharted's army of bellends, most of them presumably 13 and probably under the control of Liquid Snake. Hell-bent as they are on defending this $500 million franchise from such savage and unjustifiable accusations such as, it has some issues, and apart from those issues, it's actually quite alright. My question, why can't they be more like Assassin's Creed fans? Assassin's Creed fans know their franchise is a load of old shit and gave up defending the indefensible when Ezio left and they realised the only thing holding it together was a protagonist that shagged about. Or Doctor Who fans. Doctor Who fans hate Doctor Who more than I do. Listen, your lives would be so much easier if you just accepted that the series you love is little more than a mediocre cover shooter with a bit of climbing, that's shitter than Gears of War, and only marginally better than the Tomb Raider reboot that you all no doubt wanked yourself silly over. Okay, no, sorry. Uncharted is actually a lot better than that. You're still all twats though.